Good evening. Welcome to Morgan You Asked For podcast, January 8th, about 9 o'clock. Iowa time. Another week back to normal. Holidays are over. We're kind of back where we need to be. We're home. We're not in hotel rooms. We're not traveling as much. Back home regular time. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Another year ready to go at it. Starting tomorrow, this is going to be a great weekend. Playoff football Thursday, Friday for college. Playoff football for the NFL Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Coaching carousel starting to pick up. Basketball starting to pick up. Very much underrated time of year. Football's ratcheting up, getting to find the best teams. And then basketball teams are starting to separate themselves, getting ready for their tournament.
Yeah, this is a really good time of year. Like you said, starting tomorrow, we've got the college games on Thursday, Friday. Obviously, it's a full weekend of NFL, so the football season's coming to an end, but we've still got some really important games coming up, obviously with the college playoff and then the NFL playoff starting up. So it's a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to all the games. I know we're going to go through, and I think last week we did our picks for college, but once we get done with the NFL, if we want to change any of our picks, I guess we can.
Yeah, just kind of reiterate what we're doing anyway. So always good. Let's start with the NFL. It's kind of, I do think college football is kind of taking a back seat. We've talked about this. I understand what they're doing. They're trying to get, they can't compete this weekend. They know that. So they have to play Thursday, Friday. Kind of, basketball is kind of a Monday, Tuesday. College basketball, big games are Monday and Tuesday for the most part. Not a lot of big Thursday, Friday games. So Thursday, Friday is when they had to do it, but it's almost like it's been too long. It's 10 days. It's not a week. Now, it's only been a week. It will only be a week for Notre Dame because of the delayed Sugar Bowl, but it does feel longer than a week.
Yeah, it does. And there's the rest factor. There's also the factor that with 10 days, can some of these teams get a little bit healthier? So we hope the games are going to be competitive. I think we both think that as far as the college games go, they should both be close. It's kind of my feeling on them. I think one's going to be higher scoring, the other's going to be lower. We talked about that last time. But yeah, now that most of these teams outside of Notre Dame, of course, have got this extra time, hopefully most of these rosters are as healthy as they can be.
Yeah. Yeah, the college, they've only played Notre Dame. Well, none of these teams won a conference championship. Texas played in theirs. Penn State played in theirs. And then, obviously, Notre Dame doesn't have one. And then, who's the other one? Well, that's it.
Ohio State didn't make it.
Ohio State didn't play in it either. So, two did, two didn't. But they haven't played a lot since December, since the calendar turned to December. 2-3 games at most. And they're used to playing every week. NFL, we're getting to it or whatever, but I was listening to some Chiefs talk, and Mahomes isn't going to play a meaningful game in 23 days. Or isn't going to play for 23 days when he plays next weekend. That's a long time. Now, it was planned. They played 3 games in 11 days, so it was needed as well. And then they earned it by getting the bye. And they're also, and this is we've talked about this with LeBron. They've been to the Super Bowl and been to an AFC. They played a lot of football in the last 5 years. They've lost the Super Bowl. They've won 2, or they've won 3, right? They've won three, lost 1, and going for their 3rd in a row. So, like LeBron getting to like 9 straight finals, well, that's a whole nother season or more of playing. They're not young. As long as 15's the quarterback, the Chiefs are in contention. But that will be interesting to see. Doesn't affect this weekend, but going forward it will.
Yeah, if you if they get to the Super Bowl this year, that'd be 9 extra games that they've played compared to teams that like the Jets who haven't been to the playoffs in ever. So that's another half season of football. Those games do take a toll on the body. We've talked about that before, and the Chiefs will be fine. Mahomes, Reed, they're veterans. They know what they're doing. They know what the mission is. So I think if you had a younger team, that would be a problem. But with the Chiefs, I don't see much of an issue probably for them. I know before we get to our playoff picks, I did want to go just a few minutes on the Lions-Vikings game that took place Sunday night.
Yep.
Probably the biggest regular season game in history, at least on paper, given the wins and what was at stake. Good game in the first half, and then the Vikings, in my opinion, they tried to play Lions football. They went for it several times on fourth down in the red zone. Instead of getting the points, they didn't convert any of them. And in the second half, I think about the 9-minute mark in the third quarter, they did what Detroit does. And you could tell they were clearly a better team. And I just wonder if the Vikings are a good team, don't get me wrong, but if they were just a better story than a great team per se. Because Sam Darnold came back. That was the old Sam Darnold that I've been scared of seeing all year. And last week I said, well, I think I've seen enough. And then 1 week later, he lays an egg. So that's the NFL for you. It's a week-to-week league. And once you think you got a team or a player figured out, just wait a week, and you don't.
Yeah. Was that the Sam Darnold that we've known historically, or is that just one bad game? We don't know yet. And we're going to find out this weekend. It's Monday night, right, when they play?
Monday night. That'll be the final game. Yep.
So we're going to find out. If Darnold plays bad again, it's going to cost him some money, and it's going to cost him. I think the Vikings, if they lose again, I think the Vikings let him go.
There's a good chance. I mean, it depends how he plays. If he plays well and they lose,
right,
I wouldn't be surprised if they franchise tag him. Again, it'd be nice to bring him back. In an ideal world, I'm sure Kevin O'Connell would like to bring him back, have McCarthy be the backup. If you can keep Daniel Jones on the roster, great, as a third string emergency quarterback type player. But yeah, it's really going to depend how he plays. But that was a big win for Detroit. Aaron Glenn basically just secured himself a head coaching job if he wants it after that performance. I mean, They're down to bare bones on defense, and to hold the Vikings to 9 points, that's one of the better coordinator performances of the entire season so far.
Yeah, and Flores isn't going to get a job because of what happened in Miami, and there's a lawsuit out and everything. But if that was not the case, Flores is got himself a job as well, I think, because what he's done with Minnesota this year. Aaron Glenn the same way. Johnson, the offensive coordinator, will have a job if he wants. Which we're going to talk about one coaching job coming up that affects both my favorite teams coming up here in a few minutes. But, Flores with his complexity and everything, the one thing that he's got going against him is Matt Stafford and Sean McVay have seen and done everything and been successful. So they're not going to fool Stafford. It's not like a rookie Caleb Williams or a second or third year guy in Jordan Love. This guy's won a Super Bowl. He made the Lions credible. They weren't great, but they went to the playoffs. They were decent when he was there. Now, Coach Dan Campbell, Jared Goff has risen them to another level. But if Stafford was still there with Coach Campbell, you could say they would be a step ahead, and they might have that Super Bowl already last year instead of Goff. Now, Goff's been very good, and Goff, we've talked about this before, Goff led the Rams to a Super Bowl as well. So he's been to the Super Bowl. He was actually there before Stafford.
Yeah, that trade's always an interesting one because if they still had Stafford, then they wouldn't have a lot of these draft pick players.
Right.
Gibbs, Laporta, Brian Branch, those guys may not be there. So who knows if the team would be as good. But that's always a fun one looking back. It really that's one of the rare cases of a win-win for both teams. Yep. Rams got their Super Bowl. The Lions look like they've got a chance, obviously, this year and the next coming years. So it's been a win-win. And how about we move to the games that are coming up? Let's start with the the Saturday game, 3:30 p.m., a tradition like any other. The Texans have made the playoffs 7 times. All 7 times they play at 3:30 on Saturday. So I'll go first on this one. It seems like everybody's making this pick, and it makes me a little bit nervous, but I am going to take the Chargers. I feel like they're hitting their stride at the right time. I like obviously Harbaugh, and they do have the number 1 scoring defense. The Chargers do. And one thing that I do like, we've talked about the season, obviously Ladd McConkey for the Chargers is a great rookie receiver, but Quentin Johnson, their first-round pick from last year, he's really starting to come into his own now. So their weapons at receiver are starting to hit their stride, and J.K. Dobbins is back. So everybody's picking the Chargers. I'm one of them. Usually home, and the Chargers are favored. Usually home dogs in the wild card round are the way to go, but I'm going Chargers in this one.
I would like to see the Chargers win, and the conventional wisdom would say the Chargers are the better team. The Texans haven't been playing good. And I've still got to make my picks in Whitford's pool. I haven't sent him. I got to do that before Saturday morning. But for the podcast, I'm going to pick the Texans just because everybody's picking the Chargers. And I think I'm probably going to have to do that in Whitford's pool too, because that's the only way to win. Now, the first round isn't as big a deal because of the points, but you've got to pick some. You can't go with everybody else. You got to go a little bit different and hope it happens. So I'm going to take the Texans, but it would not shock me one bit if the Chargers do win that game.
Yeah, I actually thought you and I would be both on the Chargers on this one. So that's a little bit.
And I love Jim Harbaugh. I love the Chargers. They're really good. I kind of hope they win, but for my pick, I'm going to take the Texans just because I think that's the play, and Stroud will play better in this game for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, no, it should be a good one, but it most likely should be a close game. And then we move into 7 p.m. Iowa time. Steelers at the Ravens. Ravens are a 9.5-point favorite. My really only concern, Lamar, I think, is 2-4 in his career against the Steelers. He's been hurt some of the games where they've played, so he hasn't played them, the max amount of times that he could have throughout his career. The Ravens are clearly the better team. The Steelers are going into the playoffs, 4 straight losses. The offense looks, pretty putrid, just to be honest about it. My only concern, I am going to take the Ravens in this one, but my only concern is if it's close at half, does Lamar get tight in the second half? Because we know his playoff performances really haven't been that good yet throughout his career. And we've seen some of the all-time greats struggle their first 4 or 5 years in the playoffs before they really start racking up wins. But I'm taking the Ravens here, but I am a little bit concerned since it's a divisional game in the playoffs. I think I saw something that the last 4 or 5 games that the Steelers have played in the playoffs, they've been blown out in all of them. I mean, 20, 30-point losses.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Ravens as well, but it would not – the Steelers are going to give them a run. And I'm 100% with you. Lamar has not been successful in the playoffs. The Ravens have not been successful with Lamar. So that's like you said, that's the one thing that gives you a little bit of pause. Now, the Steelers have not been good in the playoffs lately. They get to the playoffs, but they lose. And as you said, they've lost a lot and not close lately and they're not playing very good right now, just period. They are leaking oil. The engine's about ready to blow. And we're going to talk about the Bears coaching search here coming up, but there is some rumors. Would the Bears be interested in getting Tomlin, and would he maybe be available? Just new scenery for everybody involved. The Steelers don't change coaches, but he has not got them where they want to be or expect to be in the last 5 years.
Yeah, I definitely think the Bears would make a call now, knowing the Steelers, they probably don't want to give Tomlin up, even if they lose this game, 35-14 or something like that. I would imagine he'll probably come back next year. We'll talk more about the Bears too. Well, one last thing on the Ravens is, the first half of the season, their defense really wasn't playing very well. Their defense has flipped a switch, and they're playing more like Baltimore Raven defense that we've seen before. And Derrick Henry, I mean, everybody's talking about Saquon getting over 2,000. Derrick Henry was only, I think, 79 yards short of a 2,000-yard season this year. So he's having a heck of a year. The Ravens are going into the playoffs with really good momentum. I talk about that every year. We just got to see them do it in the playoffs now and Lamar not get tied. He even admitted it in a press conference. He says he gets really excited and, it's understandable, but he's got to rack up some wins.
He wants to do well.
So,
and yeah, there's a lot of people that believe that the Ravens are the best team in football. It's not just one or two people, and it's people that know football and know the NFL. They think they are the best team. Now, Lamar has never done it in the playoffs, and Mahomes has always done it in the playoffs every year. So that's the difference, but we'll see. And but the Ravens win this game. I think 9.5 is a lot. So if you had to really if you were just betting the spread, you may bet on the Steelers just because 9.5 is a lot, especially in the playoffs. But the Steelers have been blown out the last several playoff games, as you stated. So I don't even know. It's crazy. Yeah, who knows what happens?
It'd be a stay away game for me. If I was going to bet it, I would take the Ravens. I think this might be a moment for them, but I'll pick them to win, of course. But if I was betting the spread, obviously this is one I'm just going to stay out of. But yeah, we both got the Ravens there. So those are the two games on Saturday. Once we get to Sunday, noon Iowa time, Broncos at Bills. Bills a 9-point favorite. I'm sure we're both on the same one here, but I'm going to take the Bills. For the Broncos, can they keep it close at half? I think the goal for the Broncos would be no turnovers in the first half at least. If they can do that, the weather could be bad. Probably a low-scoring game. Denver's got a really good defense. So I think they'll have a chance to keep it close at half. But if Bo Nix goes out and, like a rookie quarterback would do, has a couple turnovers, this thing maybe could get out of hand.
Yeah, same thing, big spread. But the difference here in the big spread is you have the rookie quarterback. And as you said, if he would turn it over one or two times in the first half, it could get out of hand in a hurry. And then the Bills could just coast in the second half, especially if the weather gets bad and gets worse. But this is the one game where if it stays close, do the Bills get a little bit tight? And does Josh Allen get a little tight and Coach McDermott get a little bit tight? Because they've been good for several years now and haven't been able to get over the hump of winning playoff games and winning. They even had, they had the Chiefs at home last year and couldn't get it done. So that's my only worry, but you cannot bet on a rookie quarterback on the road in the playoffs, in my opinion.
Yeah, typically not. I mean, I'd be more worried about the Bills coaching staff and their defense than Josh Allen. Josh Allen's he's had some really good playoff performances, unlike Lamar. I think
he just one time didn't touch the ball.
They gave the ball back with 13 seconds, and it was like they should have won, but that was the miracle of that got Kansas City going on the dynasty here. So yeah, I mean, we're both on the Bills. I think if anybody in Whitver's pool does pick the Broncos and the Broncos do pull the upset, that's going to be a game changer. Yeah, probably Zach. Zach will probably be the one, and if that
win the whole freaking thing because of that.
Yeah, that could be the difference there with the points in Whitver's pool. So we're two we agree, one we're different on. We'll move to the afternoon game at 3:30.
So I have a question for you, and I don't pay attention enough. Is it always where they do all the AFC or NFC and then they switch like this year, where it's the 3 AFC games and then the 3 NFC games? Is it always like that or not?
I can't remember. I'd have to go back and look over the years.
Right.
I just know the Texans always play on Saturday.
Saturday at 3:30.
Yeah. I forget if they always do that. I'd have to go back and look, but that could be the case.
I just don't know. I just a question. I know that was happening this time, but I didn't know. So,
and then Packers at Eagles. Eagles a 4.5-point favorite. Really, this This one it's going to be a little bit of rust. You know, he's back off the concussion protocol, so
practice
he's
today.
back in practice. Yep. And the reason he was in it so long, he couldn't technically get off the protocol until he practiced. Well, I think today was their first official practice day, so it kind of got drug out there a little bit. The Packers got some injuries. Jordan Love's a little banged up. 4.5 feels about right. I am going to go with the Eagles. I think the Packers. There are a lot of people picking the Packers, and I think that has a little bit to do with what they did in the playoffs last year. Yeah. I don't think they're quite as good right now this year. They're a good team, obviously, but the Packers are 0-5 against the Lions, the Vikings, and the Eagles this year. So I think it's sort of a strength of schedule, battle tested. I am going to go with the Eagles. They have arguably the best roster in the NFL. They're at home. So I'm picking the Eagles in this one.
I'm going to pick the Eagles as well. I just hate the Packers, and I just don't quite trust them. Here's an interesting stat for you. They had a pretty good record, but they were a blocked field goal away from going 0-6 in the league, in the NFC North this year. Mm-hmm. That's an interesting stat. Now, they beat everybody else. But in the NFC North, just that blocked field goal against the Bears away. Now, obviously, the Bears hit the game-winning field goal this time last week. But, yeah, I just thought that was an interesting stat that Matt LaFleur almost went 0-6 in the division.
No, that definitely is. And, we'll see how the Eagles come out. Again, the time off for Barkley and the O-line, I think, is good. But this one's going to come down to the quarterbacks, how well they play. But I got to go with the Eagles. I just think they got the better roster. Like I said, arguably the best roster in the league. They have one, and they have good balance on offense and defense. And the Packers, Jair's out, Watson's out now, and Jordan Love being banged up. So we're both locked up there on that one. And then the final game Sunday night is Washington at the Bucks. Bucks a 3-point favorite. This one I think is probably the toughest game for a lot of folks to pick. There's a lot of people on Washington, which I understand. I'm going to go with Baker Mayfield. This is going to be, I think, his 5th playoff start. He's won a playoff game with the Browns. He's won a playoff game last year with the Bucks. I'm going to go with the home team here and take the Buccaneers.
I am as well, and it's simple. It's real simple. It's Baker Mayfield's been there, done that, and Jaden Daniels is a rookie quarterback on the road. He's really good, and and Bo Nix is really good. I think both of them are very good NFL quarterbacks, played really well, got their teams to the playoffs when they necessarily weren't supposed to this year. Both played better than they thought they would. But on the road, Baker's really, really good in this spot. And I think Baker's very underrated. He went to the Browns. He was the number 1 pick in the draft, probably shouldn't have been. But he's a really, really good NFL quarterback. Not great, but just good. He's starter, a playoff team starter most years, and he wins that football game.
Yeah, Baker definitely last year was underrated. This year, I didn't know what to make, but he's found a home there in Tampa. And I think one thing to really watch in this game is Marshawn Lattimore is expected to play for Washington, the corner. He used to play for the Saints. Him and Mike Evans absolutely hate each other. I mean, they've gotten in fights. They've thrown each other to the ground. That's something to keep an eye on in this game, just for fun. Mike Evans versus Lattimore. Don't be surprised if those guys start throwing each other around, throwing some punches, helmets go flying, penalties. Just keep your eye on that because those two cannot stand each other going back to when Lattimore was with the Saints.
And he got his $3 million, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That was fun. That's honestly about the most fun thing to watch on Week 18 anymore. And I read a good article that what can the NFL do to make Week 18 better? And the writer didn't know because there's nothing except for what happened with the Lions and the Vikings, which it came down to everything. So both those teams went all out, but just too many things are set. And it didn't matter win, lose, draw, it was set. And unfortunately, the more games that you play, so when it goes to 18 games, it's even going to be worse. the less games, the less margin for error, less separation. But the more games, more separation. And it's just going to get worse and worse the more they play.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer would be either. Obviously, because they do 7 AFC, 7 NFC playoff teams, so they can't have 2 byes like they used to do.
Right.
It used to be 12 teams made the playoffs. Well, now it's 14. If they went back to the 12-team playoff, then they could have the 2 byes. Then you would have more teams maybe trying to play that final week to get the 2 seed and get a bye like it used to be, or just to get in the playoffs. So, yeah, I don't know what the answer would be on that, but we do know they're going to go to 18. So it's just going to the last couple of weeks, once they do get to that 18-game schedule with the 2 bye weeks, the final 2 weeks is going to be pretty hit or miss on quality games. There's going to be a lot of draft.
Yeah, there's going to be, when they go to 18, the last 2 weeks are going to be more vulnerable to people sitting out and everything.
Yep, draft pick games is what it'll be. Do you want your team to lose and get a better draft?
And we probably don't know this officially, but will it be back a week? Like, is it going to go into, like, this weekend would be the last week of the regular season, or are they going to move it up a week? So would the Christmas Day games or that start getting affected maybe?
I think I've seen some stuff. What they'd like to do is play Super Bowl on President's Day weekend.
Yeah, so move it back so it'd be just keep adding to the end.
Yep.
Well, I mean, and I understand that because college football just keeps going longer and longer, and they're going to add teams to their playoffs, so it might go another week. So, the college football playoff, January 28th, whatever day you want to call, right around there, and then the Super Bowl around February 20th or whatever it is.
They need to have March Madness, and then the NFL would get right into their free agency and draft. I mean, they wouldn't have to wait long to be right back in the news again, just like they always are, pretty much. Right. But they're just going to keep expanding and owning the calendar year for sports. And then the last game, Monday night, 7 p.m. Iowa time, another tough one for a lot of folks to pick. Vikings at Rams. Vikings are a 1-point favorite. This is the last one, so I'll let you go first on this one.
This comes down to one person and one person only. What is Sam Darnold made of, in my opinion? If he plays really well, the Vikings win. But if he plays bad, they lose. I don't know what we don't know. He's never been in this situation. I'm going to go with the Vikings because I think he plays better, and I think he plays well. Kevin O'Connell is going to get his attention after last week. He's going to get the team's attention, not just Sam Darnold. And I think they're really good. I don't think it's a complete fluke that they're 14-3. They're really good. And I do think they show this. And then unfortunately they go to Detroit next week.
Potentially, unless there's upsets,
right.
Washington or the Packers were to win, then Detroit would get the lower seed. I'm going with the Rams. They did play earlier this season. The Rams last year and then this year have hit on a bunch of defensive players in the draft, and they've got a good pass rush. And we saw what Detroit's pass rush did on Sunday night with makeshift guys. I mean, just guys off the street and guys they've traded for, and it's collapsing the pocket around Darnold. Well, the Rams did the same thing earlier in the year. Sam Darnold and the Vikings have only lost to the Lions twice and the Rams once. But I am going to go with the veteranship of Stafford and McVay. One thing I think to keep an eye on the other quarterback is we know Stafford's a gunslinger. He'll take some chances. The Vikings lead the league in takeaways. So he'll take some chances. And if the Vikings can get a turnover or two, maybe that'll be the difference. But I'm going to go with Stafford and McVay in this one. Kevin O'Connell used to work for McVay. Maybe that'll give McVay some inside information, maybe have an idea of what he's going to try or what he's going to do in that game. So looks like 4 we agree on, 2 we don't. So we'll have to see who comes out of this one on top this year. And this game, too, the last thing is they might they might have to move this to Arizona. I don't know if you saw that a little while ago, but with the fires going on in LA, this game may get moved to the Cardinal Stadium.
I was wondering that. I hadn't heard that. I haven't been home too long. I haven't turned on any news or anything. That does not surprise me. I was wondering about that. Just I'll be honest, I just don't watch the news enough. I see what's happening, but I don't know what's really happening out there. But I guess it's bad. It's really bad, actually.
Yeah, I've seen a bunch of videos. I don't watch the news much either myself, but it's on my Instagram and all this other stuff. So it's just popping up, and yeah, it's pretty bad out there, and it's probably going to get worse. These fires out west, anywhere out west, once that wind picks up, they spread in a hurry and they can do a lot of damage. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this game does end up getting moved. And thankfully it's not far for the Rams, and the Vikings are still going west anyway, so it doesn't really change their travel plans that much. Just a different hotel.
Yep. Yeah, if you're the Vikings, it doesn't matter. You're getting on a charter plane, and you're headed west, and just you hang out in Phoenix or you hang out in LA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
yeah, you're just there for a day anyway.
Yeah, no, it shouldn't change a whole lot. I mean, the Rams, we know the Rams' home field advantage isn't that big of a one anyway out there in LA. Right. That's well documented out there. So yeah, if they have to go to Phoenix, it's not ideal, but it's not too big of a deal in my opinion.
No, just the Stan Kroenke wouldn't be happy because he obviously wouldn't make as much money. Because obviously, Phoenix and whoever owns that, if it's the Cardinals ownership or Phoenix or whoever owns that stadium, is going to take their cut. And yeah, that would be the one thing. But the one thing the NFL does have is essentially unlimited money. So I'm sure they would pay Kroenke, and he would want them to pay him what he would have made at that game.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the year, they all split the revenue, whatever it makes. So the playoffs, I actually don't know if the playoffs work that way or not. I'm uncertain on that, but yeah, they'll get it figured out. But yeah, the NFL's got plenty of money, so if they have to move the game, not too big of a deal.
All right, now let's move just a little bit into the coaching carousel. A little bit of news is happening. The jobs that are open, New Orleans, the Jets, the Bears, were all before the season was over. Since the season's over, New England, Las Vegas, and Jacksonville. Am I missing any? I don't think so.
No, that seems Dallas is TBD, because his contract is up. But that's a TBD.
But as of right now, they do not have a head coach opening.
Yeah.
And the Bears requested to interview him, and the Cowboys denied it. But that changes in 6 days, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So that's the one that's still a question mark. But let's talk about New England. And I heard this today on something I was listening to. I can't remember who was saying this. That New England, let's just do timeline here. They lose their game. He does his interview and all the media stuff. And let's just say he was fired at 5:00 that night. I was told, or I heard this, that someone was told they interviewed 2 people within the organization that are minorities that night and the next morning to meet the Rooney rules. And then Vrabel is headed there tomorrow. He interviewed for the Bears today, is what was released. So they can offer Vrabel a contract as soon as he walks in the door, because they don't really need to interview him. He played there. He coached there. They know if they want him or not, for the most part. It's like when I interviewed for the job at Eddyville, when I first got out of college, the guy that was the principal was my Little League baseball coach. I'd known him my whole life. He goes, I just wanted to make sure you were the same person that you were growing up. That's all he wanted, because I hadn't seen him in several years, going to college and everything. So it was already in his mind that he wanted to hire me. He just wanted to make sure I wasn't an idiot. Essentially, that's what Kraft's going to do with Vrabel. Ask him 5 questions, make sure he's the same person, has a little bit of the vision that he wants him to see. But that's it. Now, how much is that circumventing the rules? Now, Patriots are the king of circumventing the NFL rules. But like the Bears have not been able to, Vrabel was their first interview, so they cannot offer him a contract yet until they meet the Rooney rules, which is they have to interview 2 minority candidates. Now, Aaron Glenn is, I believe, supposed to interview on Sunday, but he has to interview virtual. Ben Johnson is on Saturday, but they have to meet virtual because they're still alive in the playoffs. And that does not meet the Rooney rule. So Aaron Glenn, when you interview him on Sunday, that does not meet the 2-person rule. Again, lots of rules I don't know, but I learned that today. Or I heard that today. So whether that's a rule or not, I really don't know, but I was told that today on something I was listening to. I think one of the talk shows this morning on KXNO.
Yeah, the Rooney rule's been in place for a long time. Some people kind of laugh at it because we know some teams they know who they want to hire and they.
Yep, it's a sham interview.
Yeah, the Bears though, the Bears have a list of about 16 candidates, so it's probably going to take them about 2 months to make a decision anyway. Because they're the Bears, they're probably not going to get the best.
You might just wait till June 1st. Yeah, wait till June 1st and just hire Belichick. What the heck?
Yeah, Ben Johnson's interested. I think Aaron Glenn is. Vrabel obviously is because he went there. For the Patriots, I think the Patriots have it narrowed down to Vrabel or Ben Johnson. They do want to interview Ben as well, just to get an idea. So Vrabel's pretty much made it clear that the Patriots would kind of be his dream job. Mm-hmm. So that everybody kind of has a feeling that's where he's going to end up. Yeah, the Bears have a long list. I saw a list earlier today and yesterday. It's a lot of candidates. I guess they're doing their due diligence, you could call it. I think there's only about 5 or 6 guys that should be the coach. You should get Vrabel, Ben Johnson, trade for Tomlin, bring in Mike McCarthy. Pete Carroll, I don't really hate either. I mean, he's a proven winner in the NFL.
I don't either.
There was a bunch of these coordinators that it seems like those are the guys that the Bears and the Jets usually get, the 3rd and 4th pick of the litter, not the 1st and 2nd. So, and then of course, Matt Campbell's name came up today. The Bears have requested to interview him. So that's, as you mentioned, when we first got started.
Is that official? Is that, so I've heard both sides. I've heard there's some truth to it. There's lots of truth to it, and there's no truth to it. Like whether you go on the Bears side or the Cyclone side. Now, if you're let's go for it from the Bears side of it. He is a Midwest guy. He's from around here. The difference in Matt Campbell coaching at Iowa State than any other coach previously is Matt Campbell has developed NFL players. There are Iowa State players in the NFL now on a regular basis. And there will be Iowa State people drafted or signed as free agents that most likely will make an NFL team off the roster right now. The 2 receivers, I think, will be on a practice squad or be on a roster next year. Might be an offensive lineman, D lineman next year. Rocco, we'll see. But there are NFL players on Iowa State's roster and has been since he's got there. That's the difference in Matt Campbell and any other previous Iowa State football coach. I know the Lions and the Jets have been interested in him before. I would be surprised if the Jets don't call him again. One, they just have a lot of Iowa State players on their team. And 2, I think they like what he saw and he just kind of turned him down. I think he just didn't want to leave, or maybe it didn't get as far as you thought. As a Bears fan, and this is, I'm torn on this because if you're Matt Campbell and the NFL wants you, I think you've earned that right go listen to what they have to say. Go listen. There's only 32 jobs. And it's been proven if it doesn't work out, you can go back to college and go coach somewhere and be successful if you want to. And you're going to get a big payday. You're going to get paid a lot more than you will at Iowa State. And again, there's only 32 jobs. If you keep turning it down, those requests and the interest may go down. Just like I think the interest and requests are going down a little bit in college football because he's turned down some jobs and he's just said no thanks, but no thanks. As a Bears fan, so as an Iowa State fan, you don't want him to go, but you understand. It's just like when Fred Hoiberg left to go to the Bulls, when Tim Floyd left to go to the Bulls. You don't want him to go, but you understand. It is going to the next level. I do think an NFL job is potentially easier now because there's actually rules and regulations on signing players and paying players. The Wild West in college football right now. No guardrails. Who knows what everybody's getting paid? It's every year's a free agent. There's no rules, essentially what's coming down to. In the NFL, there's rules, there's calendars. You know what's going on. You don't have to re-recruit your players every year like you do in college football. So there's definitely some pros to go into the NFL. Pun intended, because they're pros as well. Now, as a Bears fan, I don't want Matt Campbell. Not because Matt Campbell's not a good football coach. I want a proven NFL winner. I don't want Aaron Glenn. I don't want Ben Johnson. I want Mike Vrabel. I don't hate McCarthy out of Dallas. Mm-hmm. I don't hate Pete Carroll. I like to hear you say it. I don't hate Pete Carroll. And like a guy like Pete Carroll, I don't think he's in it for the long haul, but that place needs an overhaul. They need to clean house and turn the culture around. And I think Pete Carroll will be good at that. Let him hire a couple young coordinators and turn it around. Let him oversee it and turn the program around, turn that organization around, and then hand it off to one of those guys if they're worth it, if they've earned that job, or then you can go get a coach that can turn it around. But that organization needs turned around. I'm not opposed to firing Ryan Poles. I'm not opposed to getting rid of Kevin Warren, get rid of everybody and start fresh. And then you got 2 years with Caleb Williams and figure it out, or unfortunately he's got to go and you start over.
Yeah, I think they need a veteran coach, just like you said. Yep. Matt Campbell's doing a great job at Iowa State, but he's, who knows if he'd be good. Same thing with Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, their coordinators. We don't know. So I think
they might be the perfect guy. And if they hire one of them, I'm going to be behind them, and I hope they win. I hope they do it great. But I think my number one guy would be Mike Vrabel. But unfortunately, I think the Patriots are going to hire him before we get a chance to.
Yeah, that's my guess. Vrabel would be my number one. My number two, though, if they could get him. If the Steelers get bounced in round one, I'd make a serious offer of trading for Mike Tomlin. Now, the Steelers may not want to give him up, and Tomlin now also has to agree to the trade. So
yeah, he does have a no trade clause. I didn't know that was a thing, but I did hear but obviously it may be time, just time to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of like Andy Reid. Now, Andy Reid got fired in Philly, but sometimes you're somewhere for 15, 20 years. It's run its course. Nobody's fault, really. It's time for new scenery. But yeah, I agree. I think the Bears need to bring in a veteran coach. But if they do bring in Ben Johnson, I mean, we see what he does with the Lions. I assume he's going to have a good offense. The thing is can he control an entire team?
Yep, and that's things you'll never know until he does it. You just don't.
Yeah, and that goes into our last little NFL topic here, managing a whole team. Tyreek Hill is literally turning into Antonio Brown right before our eyes. He changed his profile picture on Twitter to the Antonio Brown incident where they were playing at the Jets and he threw his shoulder pads and walked off the field. That's not a good thing to do. He's not a winning player anymore, and he's got odds for his next. He'll start the season with the Dolphins, I'm pretty sure, but if things go bad, which they probably will, I wouldn't be surprised if he requests a trade. And any team that trades for Tyreek Hill, you're just trading for a bomb. He's going to explode on you. So don't be surprised when you trade for him and then all of a sudden it doesn't go well and he's freaking out and walks off the field. And that's not what's going to change an organization. I see the Cowboys are favored to get him, or one of the favorites. Yeah, that's all they need. Another headache wide receiver. That's all that they need.
One caveat to that goes back to the Chiefs.
No, they don't want. I know someone that's works with the Chiefs a little bit, and they want no part of him. They feel fortunate.
I mean, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
But you could see where he had success there. Mahomes and Kelsey questionable whether he comes back, but could Mahomes keep him under control?
Yeah, the Chiefs want no part of him, given his current salary. They're not going to trade any significant draft picks for him now. 2 or 3 years down the road, if he's a free agent and they could bring him in for a vet minimum, maybe. But no, they feel fortunate and happy that they got a Super Bowl with him, but they're glad he's out the building.
Yeah, he was one of those, like Belichick was famous for, and Reed's been pretty good at get rid of a guy 1 year too early than 1 year too late.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they got rid of him at the right time. So any team that brings him in, but best of luck to you. We know what wins in this league: good quarterback and coaching, O-line, D-line, not these fancy headache receivers that only get you so far. Good run game, good O-line, D-line. Don't commit a bunch of penalties, tackling, blocking. Not these fancy receivers.
Yeah, I don't disagree, and it's a little bit sad to watch because he's a really, really good player, or was. I shouldn't say. I mean, he's not young anymore, and you just wonder what really goes through these guys' head.
Yeah, I mean it's always receivers.
Right.
So and they're out there on an island one-on-one. They're the NBA players of the NFL. They're mouthy and all this stuff. And listen, I'm not trying to say receivers aren't important. You can't have me or you running routes, or the quarterback's never going to complete a pass. But
yeah,
I don't think you need to have these headache star wide receivers. I think you want guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, who good possession receiver, never causes any trouble. Larry Fitzgerald is the most ideal receiver of all time, obviously, because he just put his head down, went to work. He had more tackles in his career than drops. I mean, that's what you're looking for. Unfortunately, though, most of these receivers are they can be a pain in the butt for teams.
Right. Absolutely. Anything else in the NFL?
No, I don't think so. I think we've got Penn State, Notre Dame starting tomorrow night.
Yeah, and that'll be fun to watch. 6:30, so it's not going to be super late. You're not waiting until 8:00 kick, which is nice. Yeah, I mean, with who do you like in that game? I know we picked last week, but let's just review it and we'll go from there.
So last week I picked Penn State. I am going to stick with Penn State just because I think they've got a few, not a lot, but a few more NFL bodies on their roster. Notre Dame definitely does too. But everything in my gut is telling me to go with Notre Dame. But I'm sticking with Penn State, even though but again, we talked about it. I think it's a low-scoring game, 24-20, 23.
Yeah, this is your Big Ten. I mean, obviously it's going to be in decent weather and everything. Well, it's Miami, so it could be raining, but I haven't even looked at the weather. But it's going to be warm. Two teams from the North, Big Ten country. Not obviously Notre Dame's not a Big Ten team, but they're very similar to a Big Ten team and how they're built, and how Marcus Freeman has done with them. Would either one of those two coaches be involved in any of the NFL jobs, especially if Franklin would lose this game? Because it's just never quite good enough at Penn State. Now he's made it farther than ever before, and he finally won a top, 5 game per se. But he had the easy path. And you just always wonder, and his name's always kind of out there for other jobs. And Marcus Freeman, he's young. He's worked his way up. He's got a really good job, but what is his ultimate career goals? You just don't know. I mean, most of those guys, they want to be a college head coach, but now he's got it, and especially if they would win and somehow go win a national championship. Well, and then the Bears come calling for, a Midwest guy. Notre Dame to Chicago is only 2 hours. It's, it's just, you just never know. Would either one of those two guys' names come up?
Well, Marcus Freeman would definitely be more popular than James Franklin
right
now. And yeah, I think Marcus Freeman, just sidetracked too, I think he's the most likable of the four coaches that are left in this thing. For me, I like him the most of the four, personality wise, and just seems like a good guy. He would definitely draw some interest. He already has. Right. I believe he signed an extension recently, but
I think
we know
he
how
might
those
have been
work. I mean,
interested when they even before the Bears hired Eberflus. I think his name was kind of involved in that, like right about when he got the Notre Dame job. Just
yeah, his name was circulating around. Franklin, I don't know. I haven't really seen his name pop up very much. He's kind of a goofball, as we can see on the sidelines in the interviews. I don't know if NFL teams would take him very seriously or not. But it's definitely a big game for him. I mean, if he can win this thing and get Penn State to a national title, he's just secured himself another 10 years at Penn State if he wants it.
Yeah, because right or wrong, they don't really get rid of coaches either. They've had a few coaches they had to get rid of, and then Bill O'Brien at Penn State is very, very underrated. What he took them out of. Now, he took the Houston Texans job and actually didn't do too bad there until the end. But he was able to not let Penn State die after the Sandusky-Paterno deal, and then turn it over to the next guy. But, yeah, I mean, it was a bad spot there for Penn State for a few years, and they're back, and they're spending all kinds of money on football stadium, and they are all in on wrestling there, and they're all in on football there.
Yeah, definitely wrestling. We know that they're a dynasty right there, and I don't see them slowing. I mean, I don't pay attention as much, but it doesn't seem like they're slowing down anytime soon in wrestling. So
I think State's, as long as Cale Sanderson's there, they will be right there.
Yeah, they've got some things working for them. So yeah, I'm going to stick with Penn State. Who are you going with? I forget.
I'm going to go with Notre Dame. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And I'm going to stay there. I think Notre Dame's really good. I think somehow they blew that game to Northern Illinois, but really no other game has really been that close. They've done what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, everything's telling me to switch to Notre Dame, but for some reason I don't want to switch my pick. But my gut feeling is to go with Notre Dame, and I'm sticking with Penn State, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like the Texans with me. You want to go with the other team, but I'm the same way. And then, I do definitely think the more entertaining game, the more I think it will be interesting to see this Ohio State. I do think the crowd is going to be a factor in this game, with it being in Dallas for Texas. Ohio State, I saw a thing where they're pumping in crowd noise and stuff, and they need to. There wasn't a lot of times it was very loud there in Jerry World because the game was so bad when I was there just a few weeks ago with Arizona State and Iowa State, and it wasn't full or anything. But I could imagine in any dome setting, and I'm going to pick that stadium's going to be 65% Texas fans, because you got to think there's going to be a lot of people that just go to the Cotton Bowl every year. That's just what they do. And this is the Cotton Bowl that are just Texas fans. And then they just hit the lottery, and Texas ended up being there. So I'm gonna go with Texas. I think that's changing my pick. I'm gonna go with Texas. I just think Ohio State has played so well the last 2 weeks that they can't do it again.
Yeah, I think last week. No, that's fine to change your pick. That's what another week does. We're allowed to do that. So I'm going to stick with Ohio State. They've got technically, if you look at the 4 and 5 star recruits, they've got a few more 5-star and about 8 more 4-star. How much that really matters in this game? It probably really doesn't matter. It's just who plays better, right? I mean, they're both
Texas
super
has
talented.
a 5-star sitting on the bench at quarterback.
Yeah, and we'll see if he gets in the game. I mean, that could really be the difference. Yeah. I was surprised they didn't put him in versus Arizona State to get a spark. They may do that in this one. They may have to, because we've talked about it. Quinn Ewers can make some mistakes. Will Howard for Ohio State's been on a heater. We'll see if it continues. Well, Ohio State's definitely, they're as deep as anybody at receiver. Yep. Jeremiah Smith is very good. They've got Downs there at the safety corner, he's a hybrid player. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes up with an interception, and then Jack Sawyer on the D line for Ohio State. But I'm sticking with Ohio State. I'm thinking something like 38-31. Yep. A competitive game, but a one-score game. Ohio State covers the spread.
Yeah, I think the score's very similar to that, 38-35. It's close. Texas does pull it out in the end, but it wouldn't shock me a bit if Ohio State rolls them either. I could be way wrong in this pick. But I just don't. Ohio State is very, very good, and they've been playing awesome. Just don't know if they can just keep the dominance up. And they haven't played a close game yet. Obviously, Texas played a really close game in the SEC championship. Obviously, last week went to overtime with Arizona State. So they are a little bit more proven recently. Texas has just jumped out to a huge lead right away and then just coasted the rest of the way in their 2 playoff games.
Yeah, we'll see if Ohio State can bring it up. If it is close, I think that Michigan loss springboarded them. We've talked about it before. Losses like that can derail your season, or it can do the opposite. It seems like for Ohio State, obviously, it has done the opposite. But yeah, either of these games
to get them going.
Yeah, either of these games, I don't think anybody's going to be surprised if either team wins in either of them. I mean, they're both these. I'm hoping that both games are close. We don't have any blowouts either way. Hopefully, they're all 1-score games.
I think Murph and Andy had this today. This was a good one. Of the 4 teams left, who has the best helmet? It's 4 of the best helmets in college football. They're all simple. Obviously, Penn State doesn't have anything. Notre Dame doesn't have anything. Texas just has the Longhorn. Then Ohio State is very plain at the beginning of the year, but then they put the Buckeyes on it for different things, so they get filled with the Buckeyes for the end of the year. But all very simple helmets and very iconic. Which is the best one?
That's tough. That's a good.
Right. That's a good one.
Question a lot. It is a really good one. Obviously the Longhorn's the coolest looking, just of the pure logo.
That's what I was going to say. Just the white with just the orange Longhorn is pretty cool. I hate the Longhorns, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I can't stand Ohio State, but I do like that they put the stickers on. I've always liked that. In my opinion, it looks cool. The Penn State, the plain Jane. There is something about that. And then Notre Dame, of course, is the iconic helmets. I don't know. That's one of the tougher questions I've ever been asked on here, because I'm big into jerseys, logos, how players look in them. I've told you this before. I have a theory, and I'm going to do it this year. I've talked to people online about it before, but I'm going to. This is sort of getting sidetracked. We'll get back, but I'm going to predict players in the draft for the NFL, and I'm going to predict if they're going to be good or bad just based on how they look in their uniform, and or if they have a cool name. That's it. I don't care what the film says. None of that. Just, do you look good in your uniform? That's all I'm going to base it on. But no, back to this. I love the Longhorn logo. I'm not as big a fan of their jersey color overall, but you're just talking the helmet.
Right, just the helmet.
I think I go Ohio State.
So that'd probably be my 4th one. Because they cover, and it's kind of the opposite reason. You like it because they put the stickers on. And I go the other way because they do change it throughout the year. You got Notre Dame that never puts anything on it. Penn State doesn't put anything on it. And then Texas is just very simple, just a Longhorn. And they don't put anything on it. But that's what makes the Buckeye, but that's what makes it a little bit intriguing. You just flip it the opposite, and that makes it better that they do change it throughout the year. And when they you know, 45 years I've been alive, Ohio State's probably played in the Rose Bowl 15 times, that I watched it. And, by the time they're playing in the Rose Bowl, their best players is just their helmets full of the Buckeyes. And that's awesome. So I don't know why, but I'm going to actually say that that's last in my book. I'm going to go with Notre Dame, just the Golden Domers. Growing up, obviously I was 8 years old in 1988 when they won it all. Lou Holtz, watching Notre Dame in Miami in 92 or 93, whatever that was. Always have a soft spot in my heart for Notre Dame. Midwest kid. Growing up, you didn't go to Iowa State. Always said Notre Dame wouldn't have been a bad choice.
Yeah, there is no bad choice in this question, though.
No, because Penn State's the same thing. I mean, it's you go back to 1977 with Joe Paterno playing in the Sugar Bowl against whoever. Go to 91 or 81, 82 when they won it. When they played Herschel Walker in the Sugar Bowl for the national championship, and Herschel Walker beat them in 81, I think. Yeah, their jersey's the exact same. Obviously, just looks a little different, just a little more modern now, but it's the exact same, and that's awesome. That's the downfall, and Iowa State's done a great job, but that is one of the downfalls of Iowa State is they've changed their logo, they've changed their colors. We wear white and black now. That we don't have that just iconic brand, iconic uniform like the Hawkeyes do. I mean, the Hawkeyes are one of those. It's not from 1955 to now it's the same, but it is from 77, 78, whenever Hayden Fry took over to now. It's one uniform. It looks the same. And when that Tiger Hawk goes on TV, everybody knows what it is.
Yeah, Iowa very rarely changes it up. I mean, maybe once a year they'll wear an alternate uniform, but we really have Oregon to thank for a lot of this.
Oh yeah,
Oregon was kind of the first to, and then they still do.
Baylor was second.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Baylor does. They love their highlighters just like Oregon does too.
But no, that's a great question though. That's a good poll question because I'm sure it'd be a lot of mixed opinions on that. But they're all iconic though, all four of these.
Yeah, and I hate Texas, but that helmet is pretty cool. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah. No, it definitely is.
Yeah, they're my least favorite team left, just in general. Now, I think they're going to win, and I think they could win the national championship. But I'm with you. Their jerseys with just the orange Texas and the white are but the helmet is cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt about it. The helmet's pretty badass.
Let's go to what was next on your list, Trev? My phone.
I think just talk some Iowa State men's basketball and some Iowa women, and maybe that's it for tonight.
Yep. We're just over an hour here, so we'll just go a little bit longer here. Let's go Iowa women first. And you put it 100% correct on our rundown. Iowa has two different teams. Mm-hmm. They have the starters, the veterans, and then they have the young girls, and they play way different. And you can tell that they are better players. They're not as good yet as the older ones as a whole, but you can tell that their ceiling is way higher. A couple of those freshmen are going to be really good. And they've got a good recruiting class in next year. The older group is really glad they got that girl from Villanova, or else it might be just time to turn it over to the young girls. But Lucy Olson, I think, is her name. She's really good. She's a good scorer, very experienced. But those young girls, they got some spunk. They play hard. They have emotion. They've got a little Caitlin Clark to them. And it's fun to watch.
Yeah, they definitely do. The starters, you can tell Lucy Olson coming in was a big get. She's not the passer that Caitlin Clark. Nobody's going to ever be that. But she's definitely a better mid-range shooter than Clark was. So she's got that going forward. My biggest disappointment with the starters is they play a little bit slower and more methodical. It's like they haven't quite figured everything out yet. And Sydney and Kylie aren't shooting. It doesn't seem like it. They're not shooting as many threes as I'd like to see. Sydney will still go down and score at the basket, which I'm happy with. But I'd like to see her shoot some more threes. Hopefully that happens the second half of the season. But you're right. These freshmen come in and not the shooting wise necessarily, but they play a lot like the Caitlin Clark teams did. They're up and down the court. Jan Jensen said she gave him permission. Don't worry about mistakes, just run and gun. And you can see the talent. 4 top 100 recruits. Taylor Strimlow's averaging just right around 17 minutes a game. Guyton is getting close to 12. She's a good scorer.
And she is going to get more and more minutes because she is coming off an injury. She tore ACL just over a year ago. So she's probably not even full go yet and probably on a minutes restriction a little bit. And by the end of the season at March, she's just going to get better and better and more time and healthier.
Yeah. And Ava Hayden, 9 minutes. And, they're playing a lot of minutes. And when they come in, like I said, it's 2 different teams. I mean, honestly, the most improved player from last year is Addison O'Grady of the veterans. She's averaging 10 more points a game this year. And I think her free throw percentage is up to like 71, 72%. So she's the most improved of the returners. But yeah, you can see that the talent's there. And once we get Addison Deal in, the top 3, top 5 recruit, depending where you look, she's coming in next year. Things are looking pretty promising. And the freshmen are fun to watch. And maybe that'll work in Iowa's favor as the season goes on, that you have these 2 different teams. You got the veteran team that's a little bit more, maybe smarter, more methodical. And then you've got this freshman that just come off the bench and run and gun up the court. Maybe that'll work to Iowa's advantage later in the season. I did see they're projected to be a 6 seed right now, which that makes sense. They're about the 23rd ranked team in the nation. So, but the future looks bright though. So they're fun to watch.
And, Jan Jensen's been Lisa Bluter's right-hand person for 25 years, but she's still never been a head coach, and she's learning too. And she's going to get better as the season, and then as next year going forward, she's going to get better and better. There's just things that just like we talked about with the Bears job, that's why I want a veteran that doesn't have to learn on the job at all. There's just things that you can't know how to react until you are in that seat. No matter how much Lisa Bluter tried to help her or gives her advice, some situations and some things you just have to make the call and you have to sit in that chair and make that decision to know how to react.
Yeah, she's learned in real time she's got 2 things that work for her. She's been there a long time, and she's got very talented team. So there's no excuses for her. She needs to win a lot of games this year. Like I said, if they can make the tournament and win a game, I think that'd be a positive. Yep. I don't not expect them to go super far in the tournament. I don't think many people are, obviously, but the future does look bright. So she's got some things working in her favor for sure.
Yeah, and we talked about before, just her in general. She's from small town Iowa, not very far from where I grew up. 6-on-6 basketball. She's from Kimballton, Iowa, which is a town of probably 400 people. And played at Drake under Bluter, and then just stayed there and coached forever, and then went to Iowa and been there forever. And it's just great to watch local people be successful. Speaking of being successful, the Iowa State Cyclones, number 3 team in the country, have a chance to move up to number 2 or number 1 as long as you win Saturday at Texas Tech, which is not going to be easy. They're good. Texas Tech is a hard place to play. Iowa State's not had a lot of success there over the years. And I went to the game Saturday against Baylor. I watched the game last night. I would say they played okay to good, but not great and nothing exciting. And they beat both teams by 20. More than 20. The Baylor Iowa State game, who Baylor's ranked 24, 25, they got a top 5 draft pick as one of their players. It was 15-5, and I don't know if it really got any closer than that ever. The game was kind of boring. And that's sad. I mean, it wasn't boring, but it just never was in doubt. Halftime, Larry Eustachy came on the court, 2001 team, which is, we talked about this last week, 25 years ago. I was a sophomore, junior in college. I'm the same age as those guys for the most part. We're all older. We're all gray hair. We're all, don't look the same. But it was good to see those guys. Being part of the football program, we would eat at the same places at the training table, just different things. They'd come into the training room. So you saw those people. Clint Barley, knew him growing up. He's from, played at Stuart Menlo, West Central. His family is related to some families that are from back home. So we did things together. And then obviously others you just know and saw. And the only disappointing thing was Pfizer and Tinsley, which were the 2 best players, weren't able to be there. So that kind of stunk. But a lot of the other players were. And then obviously Coach Eustachy was back. And then, last night against Utah, struggle for the first 10 minutes. To end the half, they went on 23-3 run, and it was over. Won by 23 points. Never a doubt. And that's what makes this team so much better than they've had before. There's never a doubt, and you just beat teams by 15 to 25 points, and you look up, and it's just never close.
Yeah, that's the best when you have a really good team like that, where you can come out and play a B game and you still win comfortably. That was like how it was with Caitlin Clark the last 2 years. They could be struggling playing a B minus game, but you knew in the fourth quarter they'd go up by 10 or 15, and it was game over most of the time. So that's what Iowa State's got going on right now. I saw, what did Tennessee lose by 30?
Yeah, they had 4 field goals in the first half, and at one time we were talking to this Kyle, who I teach with every day. Said he saw a stat at one time Tennessee was 1 for 24 from 3-point range, and he goes, "That's hard to do." He goes, "I bet if you went from half court, like, at the end of practice, a lot of teams do like half court." He goes, "They shoot better than 1 for 24 from half court. Just, at the end of a game, situation where you just run up and throw it. College players be better than 1 for 24 from half court, let alone 3-point range."
They might be. That's pretty bad. So yeah, hopefully Iowa State can get it. That's really bad. Hopefully Iowa State can get it done at Texas Tech. And then, like we said, I would assume Auburn will probably go to 1 just because they beat Iowa State, but Iowa State could get that 2 spot at least.
Yep. And that would be the highest ever they've ever been ranked in the AP poll, was 2. They're tied right now is for 3. They just need to keep winning. Now, to think that they're going to go undefeated is not true. But it would be neat and very fun for the fans and for the program. And I think symbolic and important that if they could get to number 1 at some point in the season. They're not going to be 36-1 and playing for a national championship. I don't believe that. The conference is too hard. Just you play too many games, just like last night. Is Tennessee 30-some points worse than Florida? Absolutely not. It happens. Now, the thing with this Iowa State team, Milan Momcilovic against Baylor was like 5 of 7, scored 19 points. And then last night had 2 points. And they won by about the same amount because of, Lipsy last night had 20-some points, and then against Baylor, he had 8. So it's just, that's what makes this team really good, is it doesn't have to be one person every night. Curtis Jones had all kinds of points last night. Gilbert had an okay night. You look up, he still had 15. You didn't even think he did that much, but he had 15. So that's what makes this team really, really good. You're getting more and more talked about. Every coach that comes in is saying this team can win a national championship, can get to the Final Four, just settles. It was really weird. And he's done several Iowa State games the last couple of years, working for ESPN Plus instead of the Big Ten Network like he used to. He's saying how, this is as good a team as anybody in the country. People do forget that Auburn did beat Iowa State, but they beat them on a tip in at the buzzer. And at one point, Iowa State was up by over 20 points against Auburn. Now, they obviously blew the lead and lost the game. So if everything stays the same, should Auburn be ranked ahead of Iowa State? Absolutely. But there's an argument that Iowa State's the best team in the country right now. And you're not going to get a lot of arguments. And if you put Auburn and Iowa State in the same gym again, be one heck of a battle again. And as Chris Williams, who does Cyclone Fanatic, he, just like this year, was the most football wins ever. This has the opportunity to be the best Iowa State season ever. Now, lots of season left. Injuries happen. Things happen. But you're starting to set yourself up where even if you have a bad stretch and let's just say you really do kind of lose 6 or 7 games and you finish the season, 24-8, you're going to be at worst a 2, maybe a 3 at very, very worst. And that's 8 out of the next 12 games you lose, which probably isn't going to happen. I mean, right now you are you are number 1 easy right now. And if you could win the next 2 at Texas Tech and then Kansas at home, if you could somehow win those 2, you are no worse than a number 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. No matter what happens the rest of the year, you could almost lose out and still be that.
Yeah, I haven't paid much of attention on the men's side. I usually do that once the Super Bowl is over. Then I kind of start to get into my March Madness mode a little bit. But yeah, I mean, obviously I don't think they're going to go on like an 8 or 10 game losing streak or anything like that, just given how good they are. But yeah, right now, obviously they're set up as would be a 1 seed. And then, as you mentioned, if they could get ranked number 1, even if it's just for 2 weeks or something, that would be pretty special. That's just going to help in recruiting and all that kind of stuff. You're going to see number 1 on ESPN on the ticker. When the games start, you're going to see that number 1 by the logo. That's always good to have.
Yeah, it's one of those. And basketball is funny. The poll comes out Monday afternoon, and how many times does a team get ranked number 1, and they're there all week, but they play on Big Monday that night and lose? So I mean, they lose a couple hours after they get it. But that's just kind of funny the way scheduling basketball is. But yeah, Iowa State is right there, and they've got everything you need. The difference this year is they got big guys that can score. They've got 3 unbelievable guards, which is really what you need in the NCAA tournament, and they're experienced. They have what you need to win it all. They're top 10 in offense and defense this year, which is another kind of stat that is almost required to win it all. You can't be really good.
You have to be like top 20 in both or top 30 in the Ken Palm rankings.
Well, I think it's been almost top 10. And right now, Iowa State is like 3 and 8. UConn last year was in the top 10. I think the last 2 years they both were. Now it's not. And then I think you have to be maybe in the top 20 to make the Final Four is the thing. So yeah, you can't be number 1 in offense and then number 100 on defense and get there. It doesn't work. You have to be really solid at both. And Iowa State's defense last year was top 5 in the country. They might even been number 1 for a lot of the season. But they just struggled a little bit to score because their bigs couldn't score. The difference is that this year, the 2, really not 3 big guys that are playing impact the offensive end so much better.
Yeah, that's exciting for Iowa State. I remember watching them, it's last year now in the tournament, and get that game against Illinois. They had a lot of opportunities to score, and they just couldn't get the ball to go through the hoop.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, hopefully Iowa State can go on a run this year in the tournament. I think we've talked about it before, where once you get to the Sweet 16, who knows? But this team, at least from everything I'm seeing and hearing from you, it's almost like you got to at least get to the Elite Eight this year now, unless major injuries happen.
I mean, this year, if you don't get to the Sweet 16, it's a disappointment. If you get to the Sweet 16 and lose again, it'd be like 4 out of the last 8 years that they've been to the Sweet 16, but never passed it. It wouldn't be a disappointment because anytime you're a top 16 team, that's pretty good. I mean, I wouldn't say it's, but it would. You'd be just wondering what if. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. And then obviously Elite Eight, Final Four, good. But this is a team that you pull the right draw, you can get there. The whole shebang.
Yeah. Nope, I'm looking forward to, like I said, once the Super Bowl is over, then I'll kind of get into full basketball mode. I mean, I've been watching Iowa women, but that's really about it on men's or women's side. So once the Super Bowl gets over, I'll start getting ready to pay attention to basketball a little bit and to get ready to start filling out all those brackets like everybody else does.
Yeah, basketball's fun. It's so much different. And Iowa State's no different than anybody else. Everybody but Lipsy who started somewhere else. I mean, it's just the reality of basketball now. Even way worse than football. Lipsy's the only one. And then Monsilla, I guess Milan came too. He's only a sophomore. So I guess two starters, but they're the only 2 players out of the 8 that play that have been at Iowa State the whole time. Everybody else is a transfer.
There's the benefit of the transfer portal, like we talk about. Some teams can take advantage and get the right guys in. Other teams not so much. And obviously for Iowa State, it's working in their favor in a good way.
And speaking of transfer portal, the Hawkeyes got a quarterback out of South Dakota State. I think it's a really good get. It's who they needed. And this is the type of guy, and this is what TJ has done at Iowa State. You look at all the transfers. Gilbert came from UNLV. Curtis Jones came from Indian Hills and then Buffalo. Joshua Jefferson came from St. Mary's. Deshaun Jackson came from Charlotte. Chatfield was at Washington State as a walk-on, but then went to Seattle, and now he's back. But he gets players from lower levels. 2 things about that. One, they just get so many more resources when you come to a Big 12 team or a Big 10 team or just a Power 4 team in general. So you're on flights everywhere. You have better food. You've got better facilities. So that's way better than a team like a UNI or Drake or St. Mary's or whatever. And then you probably don't have to quite pay him as much. It's not like a kid that was at Duke that was getting $300,000 to sit on the bench. Now he's coming to Iowa State or Iowa. He's going to demand $500,000 to start. And you may not have the same facilities and resources and structure that Duke had. So he's not happy in general because he wishes he was playing at Duke still. And then you also have to pay him a lot of money, which I think was some of the problem with Cade McNamara is he was used to being at Michigan. Come to Iowa, that's a step down. He wasn't happy to begin with. He was getting paid a lot of money, and it just didn't work. Kid from South Dakota State, when South Dakota State plays UNI, they ride a bus 6 hours. Iowa plays Indiana 6 hours. They're taking a plane. They're not driving a bus. It's just different, and you can have the resources, and then you're still gonna have the opportunity to go pro if you want to, or if you're able to. Everybody wants to. It's just if you're able to.
Yeah, no, it's an exciting get for the Hawkeyes, and most importantly, do you know what's most?
I did hear the number.
Do you know what's most important about getting? He looks good in his uniform. He looks like a quarterback's supposed to look.
He does. So, he's got a little sunshine hair to him.
Yep. He wears number 11.
I think he's from Sioux Falls. so he's from around. I mean, he's not from way off. Do you hear the number the rumored money that they did pay him though? He's getting paid handsomely, $1.25 million. That's pretty good.
Even if it's half that, even if it's half the rumored number, I mean, who knows what the numbers are. But yeah, it's exciting. The offense definitely took some strides this year, so it's on paper it gives us some hope. Obviously, Sullivan has another year of eligibility, and he's a playmaker quarterback. He could run around and all that type of stuff. We'll see if I don't know if
he will be in the transfer portal in April.
Okay, I didn't know if he could. I haven't really looked into it that much
after spring
yet.
ball. There's another one.
Yeah, it's exciting, but it's a wait and see. I'm not going to get overly excited because I need to see him play first under the Kirk Ferrett's Iowa-led offense.
Yep.
Yeah.
And kind of the joke is he does only have 1 year of eligibility, so they can't mess him up that bad because every time the second year they all get worse. Well, he won't be here. He's only 1 year guy. That's what they need to do. Like the joke was, that's what they need to do every year. Just go get 1 year guy. You can't mess him up too bad in 1 year. If you have more than one, you can mess him up.
Fingers crossed.
So, all right. Well, that's we're almost an hour and a half here. Plenty long tonight. Thanks to those of you that tuned in. Do appreciate you, everything. YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, Apple, iHeart, Amazon, wherever you listen to us or watch us, we thank you. Hopefully your New Year's off to a great start, and you're as excited as we are for the upcoming weekend with all the football, and then going forward with the national championship college football game, and then the divisional playoffs going forward. Football, unfortunately, is coming towards an end, and that's our favorite thing to talk about. But we'll turn right into basketball, as we talked about at length. There is some potential to be a super exciting February and March in Cyclone fandom.
Yep, things are looking good for Iowa State. So worst case, we'll find something to talk about. We always do.
Yep, absolutely. All right, thanks a lot, Trev, and we'll talk next week.
Have a good one.